I am Signa Aldrich, Ian Thomas Aldrich's grandmother. I just turned 85. I get up in the morning. I usually take all my vitamins first. That's very important. And get myself dressed and get ready for the day. And I will go to wherever my meeting is if I have one. And then I will go and do my exercise. Try to go there at least 5 times a week, Monday through Friday. And if I miss a day, and then I'll try to go on Saturday or even on Sunday sometimes after church, because they're open 7 days a week. So I really like that, and it helps me out. And then in the afternoon, sometime I will just sit there and watch if I have time, I will watch my program, which I really like. Yes, Days of Our Lives. I got stuck on that years ago from my sister. And I tape every day. And I can speed through those commercials. And I see my neighbors or call my friends. One of the things I like to do is to go to the casino. And that's in Tuolumne County, where I live. But I have fun doing that. And sometimes I'll go to the movies. I have girlfriends that go with me. And we have a lot of fun. Or we'll go out for lunch. I'm usually out every day because I go to the post office also to get my mail. This way, if I go away, I don't have to worry about my mail. They keep it for me. Stack when I get home. Yeah. And sometimes I'll even get to go to Tahoe, which I love to do. And we drive up to Tahoe and we stay there for a while and have fun and come back home. Oh, I also volunteer at the hospital, which I've been doing since 1989. Yeah, we moved up to Sonora, California in 88, and I started volunteering in 89. So I've been volunteering all those years. Let's see, we moved to California from Connecticut in 1966. And I started with the phone company. It was Pacific Bell then in California. And that would have been in 1968. That's right, it was in 68. And I stayed with them until 88 when we retired. And that was good. And then we had a motorhome, your grandfather, and we came out and saw you. And we also went to Florida. You weren't living in Florida then, you were in Tennessee. And we went to Connecticut, where I came from. I was born in Connecticut in a house, Dodgingtown. That was about 1.25 miles, I think, from where Mom and Dad lived, or lived after, you know. And I lived all those years in Bethel, Connecticut then. Graduated in high school, 1950. Got married in 51. Your father was born in 53. And that was in Germany because your grandpa was in the army at that time. And I went over there. And then we came back when he was a year old. And we lived we lived with my mom and dad for a couple of years, about a year probably. And then we bought a place, a small house in Bethel, Connecticut. And your dad went to school there, grammar school, the same one that I went to, Grassy Plain. And then we moved to Huntington, Connecticut, because your grandfather had a job with Sikorsky at that time. When he left Sikorsky, we came to California because he wanted to go someplace else. And the job with Lockheed came up in Sunnyvale, California. So we moved to San Jose. And your Aunt Eily, which was my oldest sister, and her husband were already out here in California at that time too. So we lived close by, which was really nice. you know. And then they moved, and they went to Henderson, Nevada, because my brother-in-law, Jules, had a job that brought him out there. So then we bought a house there next to them, and we were going to retire there, but we never did. We decided that we didn't like that kind of weather. So we said, forget it, and we sold that place. In the meantime, my sister was renting it out. We told my sister that we were not going to move there after we retired. And the first thing you know, they moved back to California. After we came and visited Eileen and Jules up there in the Gold Country area, we'd come up there on weekends or whenever we could, you know, especially holiday time. That was in 1987. And so we were going to retire in 1988. So we decided to buy a house near where Eileen and Jules finally found a place to live in Sonora, California. So that's what we did. We bought this house and rented it back to the people that owned it for another year until we retired. And then we came up the following year in 1988 after we sold our house in San Jose. It was after that was when we made our trips back east and so forth in the motorhome. But then your father got sick. It was your grandfather. He got cancer in '92 and passed away January 6, 1993. And eventually I decided to move down from where my sister was living into the lower altitude, closer to, well, it was actually into Colombia. And I met another man who also lost his wife. And how I met him was going to craft fairs. And he sold jewelry. We met, we both were widowed, and we started going out together, and we stayed together for many years. He lived in his house not far from me, and we used to go places together and really enjoyed it. But then he passed away. It'll be in 2 years now, in February of this year. But I keep myself busy, doing lots of activities and going places with my friends, my girlfriends, and my neighbors, and so forth. And I also like to play air hockey when I come visiting all you guys here. It's fun. And then we go places, go on vacation. I'm determined to keep myself up. And I do that by taking care of my health, eating what I should eat, most of the time. Taking all my vitamins, and I go to church. I meet people. I like to be with people. I help out at the hospital where I volunteer. It makes me feel good to be able to help other people too. Yep, you got to keep yourself up and keep going. And I thank God that I have you and my son and family. I think we had one of the first TVs. It was black and white, but Dad, my father, he was a wonderful father, and my mother was a wonderful mother. And Mom died when she was over 101. She was going on 102. And my father was 7 years older, younger than Mom, and he died 7 years later. At the same thing, he would have been 102. So I guess I had pretty good genes. And I hope that David and you also have those good genes and will live a long, healthy life. Yeah, it was nice. Growing up, we had lots of fun. We lived out in the country, and my cousin Audrey and myself used to go bike riding. We'd bike ride quite a ways too. We used to bike ride to Bridgeport. We had done that. And we had those railings, fence railings out in front of the house. Used to walk on them too. I could do that. And we skated in the wintertime because that was across the street from us. And went swimming in the summertime with all of our friends. And I still have friends in Bethel, Connecticut, where we lived growing up. And I graduated, Yeah, and I keep in touch with some of them too. So I've had a very good life. I can't complain. Well, Ian, I think I forgot to tell you that your father, for one thing, your great-grandfather, was a very good photographer in New Hampshire. He took a picture of the old man of the mountain in Franconia Notch. And that was in our geography books at that time. Anyway, that was really something. When I got married, that was in 1951, but I was living at home with Mom and Dad. And also, I was living at home with Mom and Dad, and I said to my father, I says, we want to go to New York to see some shows, which was about 60 miles from where we lived in Connecticut, in Bethel, Connecticut. And Dad said, well, that's okay, you can go, but you have to come home every night. I says, okay, Dad. But Dad didn't know that we planned on getting married at that time. See, I could get married at 18 in New York State, and I was 18. But I couldn't get married in Connecticut because you had to be 21, and you had to have permission from your parents. And I didn't think Dad and Mom would give me the permission. So anyway, we planned on getting married. We had my sister Gloria call Dad from work, and also Mom, because she was working too, and said, you better come home, have to take you someplace, you gotta go. And so anyway, Mom and Dad did come home. And my mother, she kept laughing or saying, I know, Siggy's getting married, Siggy's getting married. Mom was from Finland and she had a cute accent, and it was really great. So they did start going to New York, where we were going to get married, which was in Scarsdale, New York. Tommy, who I was marrying, was stationed at Fort Slocum, New Rochelle, which was right next to Scarsdale. And Tommy's brother, Jake, and his sister, Carol, also came to the wedding. And we were going to get married at the pastor's house. And that was another thing. Just so happens that pastor, he was serving his summertime at a church in Bethel, Connecticut. And we didn't even know that, but we found that out later too. But anyway, Mom and Dad did finally arrive. It was raining that night, but they did find their way over, and we waited. It was a little late, but it was around 8 o'clock at night that we got married there. And then Dad took us someplace. We had something to eat and celebrate. And then we were off by ourselves, Tommy and I, and we went to the hotel, which he had reservations for, only he had someone else make the reservations. We were supposed to get the bridal suite, but they didn't have his name in the reservations, and that was because we found out later on they misspelled our last name. Instead of Aldrich, they had Aldridge. I guess that was Hotel Hudson. I believe that was the name of it. Yeah. Anyway, we had a room, and that was what was important. We had the weekend, and then we drove back, and I stayed at Mom and Dad's house. We both stayed at Mom and Dad's house when he was working, and then he got orders to go overseas. He had the car. I took the train to, what was the name of that fort? It was in New Jersey. It could have been Fort Dix. Yeah. To get the car and come back and say goodbye. And Tommy met me at the train station. He brought me to the hotel where we could stay overnight, but he had to report back to the barracks. And so he left me there. We had something to eat and he left. But he sneaked out later and came back to the room. Believe it or not, I'm sure that's when David was conceived. And we left, and then that morning we left. I said goodbye to him, and I had to drive home back to Mom and Dad's in the car. And all I did was cry going through the tunnel. But I did finally make it there. I went looking for a job after, because they said that where he was going, I couldn't go. Of course, that changed too, because later on he found out that I could come out there, and that was in Germany. And he didn't know I was pregnant right away either. He got his letters all mixed up, and I'm going on telling him. But anyway, I had gotten the job at Western Union when I went to get a telegram that when he sent me some money right in the beginning. And the girl that took care of me was pregnant. So I applied for the job and I got it. And that was it. That was it. And I went overseas, and then David was born. First of all, I had to bring the car down to New York someplace. And the car was shipped over to Germany. And then I got to get on the ship and go back also. So I went over to Germany. And your father met me. Or I should say your grandfather met me. I forget I'm talking to Ian. And that was it. David was born on May 22nd, 1953. And the person that delivered him was a woman doctor from Massachusetts. And he was a month early. He wasn't even 5 pounds. That was in Frankfurt. Frankfurt, Germany is where your father was born. He was born in the 97th General Hospital, the Armed Forces Network. And that was it. And that's about the story of my life as it is.